And so we got our first speaker, Stewart, here with us. And I think we can start with the presentation. All right, Stewart, take it away. I'll jump off.
All right. Hey, everyone. Really glad you were able to make it. And this is a cool topic because the idea of marketing to marketers, I posted this on LinkedIn this morning, is every time I talk to my friends and I tell them what I do for work, I pretty much just say, like, instead of saying, oh, I sell B2B SaaS to this vertical, I just say, oh, I market to marketers. And their eyes kind of like go like this. And they're like, holy crap, that's really meta. Like, that's weird. So I'm excited to be talking to my fellow marketers who are marketing to marketers. We are a small but mighty group, and we have a lot to share. So I'm excited to share this with you. The angle I'm going to approach this conversation is from the content side, because I am head of content at a company called Mutiny. And the idea that I'm going to share with you is like how to get your customers to sell on your behalf through your content. The reality that at least I'm feeling, and I'd love to hear from you if this resonates, is there's like three big things that all marketers kind of like have over their head right now. One is this macro environment, like the whole what the hell is going on. There's a lot of changes going on. There's maybe layoffs in their company, maybe they're shrinking, maybe they're growing. It's hard to tell what the experience is like for everyone. And in a lot of cases, your ICP is just trying to keep their head above water. That's the first one that a reality people are dealing with. Second is like because of that macro environment, the CFO is like way more hands-on with budget, especially budget being given to marketing. So every marketing program therefore needs to have like a direct line of sight to how it's driving revenue and pipeline. So there's a lot of pressure to deliver and figure out how to operate efficiently, which maybe they weren't doing before. And then lastly, I don't know about you, but I feel a crazy amount of like uncertainty around the disruption that AI is going to have on our industry and our roles within that industry. It feels like, every week there's at least 3 or 4, paradigm shift announcements that are coming from the AI space. And I'm just like struggling to keep up with how I need to evolve in my role and so that I can remain relevant. So I'm just going to pause there for a sec. And I'd love to hear just in the comments if these 3 are on your radar. And if there's any that I didn't mention there, we'd love to just hear it because, at the end of the day, we're all sort of marketing to each other. And so if this doesn't align with your worldview, I would love to hear that as well, just as important. And so marketers are juggling a lot right now. It feels like for me, it just feels like there's a lot of just like stuff in the air. I'm trying to, keep my head above water, but I'm also trying to evolve into the next phase of what my career will look like. And then from a content perspective, this bar has never been higher. When your ICP logs off at the end of the day and closes their laptop, it's not like they're just going and, playing outside. They're probably sitting in front of another screen, engaging in more content, whether it's like amazing, Oscar-winning movies or an endless feed of TikTok, or they're watching cable TV and seeing, the high quality ads that are being put out right now. Like, it's very intimidating. It's hard to stay top of mind when there's just like a mountain of content that is just entertaining. How do you get your B2B content to like stick and actually be noticed? So this is a challenge that we have at Mutiny as we are marketing to marketers. And so our hypothesis became, from the content side, if we could make content that makes our customers look like heroes, is genuinely useful to non-customers, is easy to consume, and is repeatable from a production standpoint, then we'd be able to build an audience of fans who would then become customers at the right time. Sort of back to the idea of like, what is the reality of marketing? Your ICP is probably not ready to buy right now, especially given that their budget might have just been cut. Like, they're probably not assessing new tools at this point. If anything, they're in like a consolidation phase. And so that timing becomes really right of like, we just want people to be in our ecosystem and know about us and really like what we're doing, so that when the time is right, we will be able to sell to them. So I'm going to go through the 3 steps that we took and give some examples of how you can also replicate this in your own work. the first step in making sure that your content is relevant to your customers is to get insights straight from your audience's mouth. This isn't new or novel, but there are new ways you can do this that I'm seeing a lot of B2B companies doing that I think is really interesting. So a few ways to get this source material. I mean, what I'm presenting right now could be considered source material. Winter's going to slice this up and be able to use a lot with it. So this is an example, a very meta, marketing to marketers is very meta. Of course, this is a marketing experiment as well. Presentations like the one I'm giving right now and panels are, heavier weight, heavier lift up things you can do because your presenter needs to prepare and your panel needs to be there together at the same time. But this is a great way to get source material of your prospects or customers talking about your industry and the thing that matters most to them. You can also do interviews and podcast style things. This is tried and true. Pep's been running this play for years. We see other versions of it where maybe there's more video heavy. They're heavily produced. Maybe some of them are just Zoom calls. There's a lot you can do on this side of things. But then a new one that I'm really enjoying seeing is more of the reports and teardowns angle, where you might actually take your prospects' website or content or emails or whatever angle you are trying to sell to them, and do a teardown of like, here's how I think here's how you can do it differently and get better results. This is really cool because you can actually show the value of what to your prospects, and they will react and be like, oh, that's interesting, tell me more. And then you're engaged in more of a sales focused discussion than just know who I am. So Peer Signal is doing a great job of this, and then Paddle and Profitwell have been doing this for years as well. So those are great ways to get the insights that you can use to then create your content that is perfectly tailored to your audience because it came from your audience. So now moving on to sort of the production side of things and actually turning that source material into something that's repeatable and practical. This is going to be especially important if you're running a small team. You don't want every single piece of content being a lift in terms of okay, what angle are we approaching this? How is it getting published? How's the distribution going to be? You want it to be repeatable. And so what that looks like at Mutiny is a format we call playbooks that follows the same format every single time. So it has the problem, the hypothesis, the solution, the impact, and then we present other playbooks that are relevant. And we also have a section at the top that shows exactly what the audience member is going to learn and what they need. So it's less of it. You might think, oh, this kind of looks like a case study format. And you'd be right, but it's not making our product the hero. It's not even it mentions our product, but very, very tastefully and only in a few places, because we're really trying to make the person who's presenting and the company who they work for the hero of this. And so in order to make this format work, you really need to get buy-in from your customers and your prospects to participate. And that's why I think this format has such a high hit rate in terms of when we ask people to contribute is, 90% of them say yes and get buy-in from their company to participate because it makes them look good. And it becomes, helpful for them to show the innovation that's happening at their company, not just oh yeah, sure, we'll give the thumbs up that Mutiny is great. It's bigger than that. It's I am actually contributing in my role as a marketer. So some advice I want to give on this, and as you're thinking about what format can be repeatable for you, is don't think about necessarily the most amazing, hard to produce, big thing, because you really want to start at the small end and start with something that can be proven out. And then as it gets validated, you can then upscale it. So think about a TV network. They've got sort of 3 genres of content, or 3 formats of content that they produce, and each of them has a different level of involvement. So the starting point would be something like a daily talking head series. These are very low lift. An example would be the daily news or the weather or sports commentary. Production wise, it's just one camera, one host, maybe a couple hosts, and like a clean background. You don't need a lot of production value to go in this. And the script itself writes itself. So it's about current affairs. It's about the thing that happened that day. So as you're getting started, I would recommend starting with a repeatable format, similar to a news anchor style, where it's like you're just rehashing things that are happening, and it's very clean and doesn't require a lot of production resources. Once you've got that muscle built out, then you can start moving into the highly produced, big budget or larger budget, more narrative style content, like a reoccurring TV show. Who else is so excited for the new season of Succession to come out? I cannot wait for that. I think it comes out on Friday. And so that is an example of like a TV network putting a bunch of budget into it because they know that it's going to do well, because they've already proven out the concept in the smaller format. And then, of course, there's the really large scale content initiatives like the Super Bowl, like the Academy Awards, any award show, like the Olympics. These require a lot of resources, and they only happen once or twice a year, but it's worth the effort, in their opinion, because they can do a whole bunch of content leading up to it, talking about, make sure you tune into this thing, make sure you get excited about this. And then the event happens, and there's tons of content that come afterwards, like here are the recaps, here are the highlights, here's the commentary, here's things you didn't see. And so that becomes sort of the maturity level of your content, can go from being something very simple but repeatable. But once you build those playbooks out, you can then start scaling it in terms of resources, whether it's extra people, whether it's incorporating video, whether it's incorporating live action events. Like that's sort of the maturity curve that I would think about as you're building out these content programs. And then lastly is connect the dots. So what do I mean when I say connect the dots? I mean that like once you create something, you need to make it part of the rest of your company, not just a little thing that the marketing and content team is just pumping out. So here's what that looks like in practice. So once one of these playbooks is created, it then shows up everywhere in our ecosystem. It shows up in our newsletter. It shows up on our company's social accounts. It shows up in promotions from the partner who we were talking about in the content. It shows up on recommended readings on our website. But we even go further than that. It's not just a marketing thing. You need to make sure that everyone else knows about it too. So that means you need to create sales enablement content so that your sales team can talk about this thing. You need to let this customer experience team know that this exists so that they can get their customers excited about, do you want to be featured? Like, here's a really cool thing that we're doing with customers. Do you want to participate? This is also a great resource for your recruiting team so that they can get people excited for joining your company, that there's like partnering with really cool logos. We also incorporate this in our outbound sales and nurture sequences. So whenever a new person joins our list, we will then say, hey, like, check out these pieces of content. We know that they're, a little self-serving in that it talks about Mutiny, but they're really just valuable, and they actually make the person want to learn more because they're like, oh, I am having that issue. I wonder if they have a playbook for that problem. So that's a little bit about the the production and the distribution of this content. But what kind of impact is this actually having on the business and driving pipeline for the marketing team? So if you see here, this is just pulled straight from Google Analytics. And this is this segment of visitors has not seen a playbook. These are just all users. They average, a 0.2% conversion rate into a meeting booked with the sales team. In terms of engagement, nothing amazing, about 2 minutes time per session, and almost 2 pages per session. So pretty okay experience. But when that visitor views a playbook, look at the doubling here. It goes from 0.2 to 0.4 conversion rate. So they're twice as likely now to book a sales call, and they're looking at 2 times as many pages, and they're on page for 3 times longer. So the style of content has such deep engagement that people actually read it all the way to the bottom. they typically will click another one to view it, and it doubles the likelihood that they're going to book a sales call if the time is right for them. And the same goes for if they view multiple playbooks in the same session. 8 minutes on page, and these don't even have videos. Like, this is 8 minutes of someone reading content that is about ICP that is exactly like them. So it has a huge impact. And knowing this now, we are incorporating these playbooks into a lot more of the nurturing and automation side of our marketing strategy, where any new lead, we will incorporate playbooks because we know it's such a sticky piece of content, and it also drives engagement and eventually a sales call. So I'm just going to kind of summarize here a little bit. If you have any questions as I'm going through this, please definitely drop those in the chat, and I'll get to them at the end. But the takeaways I want you to leave with this is, as you're thinking about creating content for marketers and marketing to them, here are a few tips that I've found to be very helpful. One is get comfortable with this idea of zero-click content. There's a term coined by my friend Amanda Natividad that as you promote the content that you're creating, it doesn't need to always be call to action, book a sales call. There should be lighter touches that you have. And thinking like a media company, you want it to be everywhere all at once, all the time, because that's how you build that relationship, that when the time is right, they know who you are, they know what value you've driven to them, they love your product, they love your content. They probably already know a lot about your product. And so that makes the sales conversation that much better. So get comfortable with putting out videos that don't really have a CTA. Get comfortable with including blog posts that aren't just link dumps of like, we published this week, we published this. Make it a more like, provide 80% of the value up front. And then if they click, to read the full thing. With that in mind, I've actually found the click-through rate of our newsletter to be even higher when I don't make it about clicking a link, and I actually include 80% of the content right in the email natively. So it's a little counterintuitive, but it actually works better than just asking people to click a link to read the full blog post. Second takeaway I would say is to stop producing random acts of content. There's another awesome term that Ronnie Higgins coined. Random acts of content is when you just do a lot of stuff because you think you just need to be everywhere. And that's true, but it becomes a lot easier to distribute your content when there's a logical flow from source material to, what that LinkedIn post will look like. And so how do we collect that source material? We run a reoccurring live session called Conversion Secrets Live, where we bring customers and prospects and invite them to present, much like I'm doing right now, to an audience that we drum up and we get them in front of. And they present a playbook to a group of their peers and they see value in it because they get to talk about themselves and get their company's name out there. That becomes the source material that then our writers create those playbooks for, and then, the trickle down of all the social and newsletter and sales enablement content that comes from it. So connect your event program, your community programs, your trade show programs, find ways of connecting that to your content program, because that will allow you to have more less effort in the source material side of things, and more effort can go towards the distribution of it, which at the end of the day is how you get it seen by more people. And then just the last thing is celebrate these wins of people becoming, fans of your content and of your company. Build that future pipeline by being their favorite instead of saying, I need them to convert in the next 60 days because our whole attribution model is built on that. What about attributing it to being their favorite newsletter that they read? What if it's their favorite podcast they listen to? What if it's the favorite video series that they watch? These are ways that you can actually get your claws into someone, and they will want to engage with you for months and months and months. Maybe maybe the current company they're at isn't the one that's going to buy, but the company they're at next year is the one that's going to buy. So always remaining top of mind with them by being their favorite is sort of like the most human way I know how to build this audience. And in my perspective, as we're marketing to each other, just being human about it is the best way to get their attention. Is like break the fourth wall, talk about how funny it is that you're selling them something that they're trying to sell back to you. There was a little bit of an existential moment at like a marketing conference that a group of us had where we're looking around being like, oh, wow, we're all essentially trying to sell the same thing, which is like results and pipeline, but we're all doing it in a different way. And so, laugh about those kind of things because breaking that fourth wall is just always kind of fun. And so, yeah, that's all I'm going to share, and we'll go into a Q&A right now. But if you want to see more of these playbooks as they come out and kind of get an idea of what this whole process looks like, you can go to mutinyhq.com/subscribe, or if you are on your phone, you can just quickly scan that code and join along, because it's kind of fun, and I'd love to share more with you. And this is the kind of stuff that I talk about in our newsletter. So if you found this interesting, would love to have you a part of that. Thanks for listening.
And where should people follow you? On LinkedIn, Twitter?
Yep. And then, LinkedIn would be the best place. You can look up Stewart Hillhouse, and Mutiny as well would be the best places there.
So we have one question. What approach do you use to get around the issue of unclear attribution from content asset and continue to be able to justify this approach to senior management?
Yeah, good question there, Ken. We do have clear attribution, though. We have there are forms on these pieces of content where we can collect people who want to subscribe. We also include, like, there is a CTA on those pages to book a meeting. So there is clear attribution that we can see when someone converted on a playbook page or any content page. And so that's sort of, that answers the first bit of like, do people convert on these areas? Yes, no. But then we also, instead of thinking about the individual programs as in terms of their attribution, we also think of like the marketing team as a whole of like, what are we all trying to contribute to here, and what is the end result of marketing? And so the way we think about that is, did we book, as a marketing team, did we book enough meetings so that our BDR team can qualify them as a realistic prospect? And so let's say we need to do 100 meetings a month. We then break that out by program. So the growth team who manages the conversion on the website, they have a certain goal based on the maturity of that program. The ecosystem team, which content falls under, so it's like content, community, and events, we all share our load as that. And then we also have the outbound sales team is generating meetings that way as well. And so between those three, we all come together, and that ladders up to a goal that we need to hit at the end of the month. And we can all see every week where we're at, and we can make adjustments along the way. And that makes it very easy to justify this approach to senior management, because we see that, maybe content itself didn't drive, contributed to it, but we wouldn't be getting the same amount of leads from events if people didn't know who we were already. As your maturity grows, people will start recognizing you in different channels. And I can also justify the content as well, because if you go into like Gong video call recordings and you listen to the sales team talk to prospects, if you just look up in Gong like newsletter or content or playbooks, I have proof of people in sales calls mentioning, oh, like, I love your playbooks, or, oh, I went to that event, it was really great, or, oh, I've been subscribed to your newsletter for months. And so it might not be as like cut and dry as a percentage, but you can find these artifacts in your CRM and in your ecosystem that proves the value of this approach. So I hope that answers your question there, Ken. But I think the needs to be metrics that you're following and be measured week by week, and we do that. And because we do that, we're allowed to have a more creative approach to how we market or how we approach our market.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question regarding that. I also believe in the media strategy, be everywhere, be seen, make content. But the thing we are struggling also is with which content in social we should push harder. Maybe it isn't getting the best engagement, but maybe it's communicating the idea better. Have you figured anything out to figure, like, we're running our ads, maybe we see an ad manager that people are watching this more, but maybe some other ad is doing the job of conveying our message more effectively. Have you figured out anything in that way, like what piece actually does the tick for the people?
Yeah, I think that's why it's important to, whether it's content or any marketing channel, you have the crawl, walk, run evolution of that channel. So if you've got a paid ad that is performing well in terms of getting leads, but then you've got other ones where the messaging seems to be better, but it's not leading to leads. You can evolve it and say, okay, well, why is that? Let's dig into it more. Let's explore it. But you also haven't put a lot of investment into it, so it's not a big deal to absolutely cut something and get rid of it. To your point, though, about like seeing certain things do really well and other things not do really well, that's the evolution, and that's the fun of content. Is it needs to, like, your taste is what at the end of the day matters. The same way TV networks have shows that come in for a season, they have the pilot season, and no one watched it, so they cut it. Like that, maybe the timing was wrong, maybe the audience, maybe the advertising was wrong. There's a whole bunch of reasons. So I think you have to be willing to evolve and try new stuff. And that's why once you find a format that works, like our playbooks, we double down on it and we produce as many as we can, because people are interested in it, and that might not last forever. So I think just starting to think about your content is more of like not just checking a box, but actually thinking of new ways of presenting it and new mediums to present it. I think that all those come into play, and there's a lot to it, which is why the repeatability is so important right from the get-go, because you need to, at the end of the day, hire an agency, do it yourself to produce this. And so it can't always be a really big brain lift and get a new piece of content out there.
Okay. Thank you so much, Stewart. Our time is up here. So yeah.
Thank you very much for having me. And it's great to meet everyone. Please be sure to, add me on LinkedIn if you want to learn more, and I'd be happy to meet and chat about your specific company.
Awesome. Bye.
Thanks.